is the next evolutionary leap in consciousness. For the last 25 years, we've been searching around the world, and what we found is that actually at this very moment in time, children are being born today who are physically different. I have pictures of several of them. We found 46 of them across the United States. The oldest one we found is 12 years old in Argentina. He wrote his first book at age 4. They are brilliant. That doesn't even describe them. Genius, brilliant doesn't even describe them. Most of them are under the age of 2. If you'll look at their heads, their 4 brains bulge a little bit. As soon as I find the rest of the pictures here, here it is. If you look at the side view of them, they look like they have footballs on the top of their head. They speak at age 3 months. They communicate with their eyes. They're telepathic. They have extraordinary abilities. They can write, they can read, they can do music, they can do all kinds of things, and they're very diversified. When they have hair, it's a little bit more difficult to see them. But as you can see, the forebrain is protruding a little bit, and it looks as if there's a little bit of a football. We've done research on them. We keep them. If you know any of them, if you've seen any of them, please call us and let us know. We keep everything confidential. As I said, we've only found 46 of them in the world so far, but we know that these are the children of the 21st century. What are we going to do with them as far as our education program goes? Earth Heart Foundation has spent the last 25 years researching educational models around the world, and what we found is we based our information on successes of successes. Best practices, whatever you want to call it, latest brain-mind research, and prevention techniques. What I'd like to do is to show you a little bit, because a lot of you are educators and parents here. Most people don't know how education started, and by the way, on the way out the door, they have our catalog with them if you'd like to have a copy of our catalog with tapes, videotapes, audio tapes, and books. Earth Heart Foundation creates from a positive frame of reference, and this is on your flyer, schools that are economically, environmentally sustainable through a whole child curriculum in cooperation with families, businesses, and schools. And you know what? All those curriculum textbooks have nothing to do with the way learning takes place. The way learning takes place is through integrated learning systems, not by subject matter, not by the teacher standing in front of the classroom. We teach children perpetual learning strategies through integrated systems, using, rather than curriculum textbooks, the problems in the community as the basis for learning. Well, how did we get to this place? I began to look at all areas of the world, everything, everywhere, every place. And what I began to notice was everything had a system. Sound has a system in vibration. Symbols have systems. The vibration of a rock has a system. A beehive has a system. This is the skeleton of a fish. Everything in the natural world has a system. This is a social system. Oh, aren't I doing well today? That's what happens when I don't get sleep. Everything has a system in nature. From social systems to structural systems, this is a wave. Are you taking notice the shape of the systems? Take a look at it. Mathematical systems, geometric systems. All the systems build on other systems. We wouldn't have structures today if we didn't have systems that built on other systems. And these go on and on and on and on until we finally come to the earth itself and the tides. The magnetic system. Everything on our planet in the natural world is a system, including you. You're here today to learn about your system. What we have come to know is that children learn relationally through systems. They must learn about their bodies, their minds, their spirits, their emotions, the environment, symbols, energy, and perception. Those are all the systems that exist in our material world. When a child learns through systems, the subject matter falls into place. For example, we have thought for all of these years that when we teach a child about mathematics and English and social studies, somehow magically, after 12 years of learning, they're going to put it all together. Well, guess what? The brain doesn't work that way. Not at all. I'm going to take you through a little bit of a train here. Does anybody know what the history of education is and how we got to be where we are today? Well, education started in 1893 when 12 people, college and university presidents, got together, and out of the chaos of the 1800s, everybody was trying to go to college. But when people, and only 15% of the population went to college in those days, and when they went to college, they would come with 10 credits in English and 5 credits in Greek, and if they came from another school, they might have 5 credits in English and 10 credits in Greek, so there was chaos when they went into college. So the 12 college presidents got together and they said, we've got to standardize things. And lo and behold, magic out of a hat, they picked 5 core curriculum, English, social studies, science, mathematics, and language, and said, this is going to be our standard. From now on, everybody has to learn this. No scientific data, no research, no nothing. And where did they get the system from? But it was from Catherine the Great in 1616 who created this. And why did she create it? To make good factory workers and soldiers. Then, in 1897, if that wasn't bad enough that we now had 5 core curriculum, but they got together and through a grant from the Carnegie Foundation, they decided not only should we have these 5 subject areas, but let's chop them up and to make sure they have time connected with it. So as everybody knows, it takes 120 credit hours to learn English, and it takes not more, not less, but it takes 120 credit hours to learn everything. As we all know today, it's totally absurd. But here we are, 100 years later, still with the same structure in education today. And what keeps happening? Well, I call education the Mary Tyler Moore model. Remember the last episode of Mary Tyler Moore, anybody? Those of us with gray hair may remember it, maybe the reruns. Well, the last episode of Mary Tyler Moore, they did a group hug. And then somebody needed a tissue. So the whole group moved. And once they retrieved the tissue, then they all moved back to the same place. That's education. It has an impenetrable wall built around it, and by the way, my undergraduate degree is in education. My PhD is in psychology. Neither discipline, by the way, do I feel connected to, but anyway. There's an impenetrable wall, and I keep getting feedback all the time. Thank you. There's an impenetrable wall we have built over the last 100 years to protect ourselves in education. So what happens? Well, we had the legislators come along, and what do they say? All right, everybody, let's have handicap legislation. So what happens? Nothing really changes. It just moves over a little bit. So we have school districts who make policies and procedures. Nothing really happens. It just kind of moves over a little bit. So let's take away all the money and let everybody follow the flow of money somewhere. Grants here, there, everywhere. Oh, where's the Department of Education granting this year? Yes, it's prisons. So we all try to have education programs for the prisons. So what happens? Nothing really. It just moves over a little bit. So the internal infrastructure of education has not changed in 100 years, even though we have technology and everything else. The key to education is to have a fluid outside model, one that can change. And that's pretty doggone hard when you've got people who are trying to hold on tight to what they have. So we went to, my colleagues and I said, well, how can we do this? Well, I have 6 superintendents who work for me, and they went around restructuring school districts. So we would go in and we'd work with the superintendent, the principals, the teachers, the parents, the community. We'd get a goal and direction, and within 3 to 5 years we'd get everybody working on task. We'd leave, and within 2 years everybody went back to what was familiar and safe. Over and over and over again. Restructuring doesn't work either. We went to look at studies. I searched everywhere, and there was not one longitudinal study done on American school districts in the United States. We only found 2, and this first one we found only a few years ago. Look at the date of it, 1943. What was going on in 1943? War. Let's see, it was politically incorrect to publish the findings of this study. It was not, I'm sorry, the way this is and the way the thing is here are 2 different things. The 8-year study was not done by 750 students, it was done by 3,750 students. And in those, what they did was, of course it was lost amidst the political climate. They took 300 colleges and universities, agreed to waive the usual 5-core curriculum and units of requirements for admission for 5 years. The results were based on an analysis of the performance of the 3,700 students. The outcome concluded that core curriculum and credit hours decreased student learning by substantial margins to the control group. That was in 1943. Now, if anybody knows anything about Ted Sizer, that's our second study that we studied. Ted Sizer started the Essential Schools movement. And what Ted Sizer found, he went across the United States for 5 years interviewing teachers. And he found 3 books. These are the 3 books that were published that reflect his findings, which are, we have very low expectations of students. The curriculum has not changed since 1940. And we're doing a disservice to our children. Here we go again. So what happens to this study? Same as the last one. Shh, we don't want anybody to know about it. Well, my colleagues and I decided, you know, there was something special going on in the 1800s that produced the most incredible minds in the world. Let's go back and look at the textbooks. This is the McGuffey. By the way, what was the first reading book in the schools in the 1800s? Anybody know? No, before that. Sears Roebuck catalog. In the 1800s, this is a primer, a 5-year-old. Look at it. Pictures, real world. Skills, unbelievable. Sentence structure, morals, character, value building in every single story. Here is 2nd grade reader. Again, high skills, real world, stories, morals, character building. We looked at the McGuffey reader and compared it to the reader of today. The first grade McGuffey reader equals, guess what grade today? You got it, 5th grade. That's how low our standards have become. Take a guess at, this is a spelling, well, it would be. This is a spelling book. Guess what grade this is? Take a guess. 2nd. Math book. Guess what grade it is? Real world math, mercantile. Everybody who graduated at 8th grade could have run their own business. What grade is this?
Are the age equivalents the same?
Yes. 2nd grade. Here is a test. 8th grade entrance exam. 8th grade entrance exam. Take a look at it. Have our expectations diminished? How did this start? Well, how do you pick your textbooks in your school districts? Oh my God, it's got our math book, it's got a pocket on it, and it's beautiful colors, it's got a pen attached, and they have all these beautiful pictures. Do we look at content? No. If you look at the TIMSS report, if anybody knows anything about the TIMSS report, TIMMS, it compared and contrasts the United States with 40 other countries in the United States, and Japan alone. Their mathematics book is yay big and yay thick for a year compared to ours. And their kids scored 20 times higher than ours. Their teachers sat at the blackboard and wrote a problem and said, you solve it any way you can. You can work together, you can work alone, figure it out. At the end of the class time, we'll get together and we'll see if we agree. What do? Here, here, here. We went to business and industry. We said, what do you want, business and industry? And here's what they told us. Do we teach to this? Of course we don't. Believe me, I have offices in 3 states. In the state of Pennsylvania, I have gone through 3 secretaries in 6 months. I need people who, we all travel all the time. I can't be spoon feeding I had a secretary, you're not going to believe this, that successful school conference, we had one conference in one state and one conference in another state, and I had a secretary who was an English major, college graduate, who decided she knew more than the rest of the world and everybody else in the office, and she sent out all the flyers for 2 states without anybody looking at it and had the same date for both states. We had to do both states simultaneously in one conference. In any event, these are the kinds of skills that people want. Do we teach them? Teamwork? We teach people how to compete. We then looked at successful schools around the United States. What makes a successful school? Well, these were some of our criteria. They had to have everybody in the classroom. Everybody. They had to have democratic principles. They had to have efficient technology, economic standards, high standardized test scores, environmentally sustainable. These were some of our criteria. We went around and here's what we found. The most successful schools in the United States have positive attitudes and beliefs about kids. They love their kids. They're first. Child-centered curriculum, they threw out the textbooks and they said, okay kids, you help us decide what curriculum, and you've got 8 of those schools in your flyer in your hand. One of them is 9 miles away from Columbine.
From where?
Columbine, the Jefferson County Schools in Columbine.
5.
9 miles away. 4, choices for parents. Parents have a say, children have a say, everybody has a say. Who decides on the policies and procedures in the school? The teachers and the students. Everybody else, get out. Stop, legislators, stop legislating. School boards, stop telling kids what to be learning. Let the kids guide their own learning process because everybody learns differently. We're teaching kids from the neck up. They don't even know their bodies from the neck down. They don't even know how they work. They sit in front of a television, in front of a computer all day, and people standing in front of them all day. They don't move. And we've known for 50 years that we have to address the psychomotor, the affective domain, and the cognitive domain. And we don't even do a minuscule of the cognitive domain. We make kids sit like this when we know the way learning takes place is if they're moving. So what do? We create diseases for natural movement. What's ADD? ADD is kids who don't get enough attention. That's what it is. We have made up in the last 25 years, and this is my profession, 3,500 new psychological diseases for kids that are equal to normal, everyday behavior, just so we can control them with drugs. Let me tell you some statistics that are coming up very shortly. Within the next 5 years, 50% of all the teachers in the United States are about to retire. In the entire United States. Within 10 years, the population of the United States, for the first time in our history, there are going to be more senior citizens than there are children. Twice the number. Of those children being born in the next 10 years, 57% will be born to single mothers, single teen mothers. And we know statistically what happens with single teen mothers. They have a lifelong poverty, low intelligence. What's happening to our population? And what are we worried about? I was in Washington 2 days ago, and I watched the president of the board of the school board of Washington, and he said, there was the 32% dropout rate in Washington, D.C. And he said, and what we need to do is to make parents responsible. So we're going to arrest all the parents if their kids don't come to school. Duh! We know that the internal structure, it's the structure of education that's making them bored. The successful schools in the United States have less than 250 children in less than 300 children in every single school. When you have 2,000 kids like you did in Columbine, they become a number. They have no identity. Nobody knows anything about them. We need to deal with the emotions of a child, with the spirit, with their souls. Go drive down Philadelphia or any major city and you'll see the souls of every child up on the walls, on graffiti. There's my name. Here I am. Yoo-hoo, everybody. Pay attention. But what do? We keep making bigger schools. And we cattle them in. You know, you're learning about spirituality here and food and all that kind. We are what we eat. Go sit in front of a school when school is letting out. It's like cattle, you know. The buses, they're almost the same color as the cattle going out, coming back in, you know. Successful schools have experimental learning. Kids are hands-on. They're walking around the classroom. There's chaos. They're talking. You should hear the questions they ask. And I take trips to these successful schools around the country. I take school districts to these on-site visits. They use play. Excuse me, but the art of play is dead in America. Why do we have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in front of a television instead of pulling off the pillows on the couch and building structures and dolls with plastic and skinny and, you know, all that kind of thing, instead of without faces, and let their imagination go and let them. The art of play is how you build neurons in the brain. That is what the purpose of play is. If I told you what was going on in America today with the child's brain, I hope I get to it anyway. Portfolios is a measurement tool. Every successful school in the United States and public schools I am talking about does not have grade point averages, does not give out report cards, and does not test children. They use creative assessment tools. And every one of their children, for example, the alternative community school in Ithaca, New York, 100% of their students go on to college, even the mentally challenged. Teachers have worldly experience, integration of all students. They don't need specialists in successful schools. They have the kids do the stuff. Peer counseling. Ithaca, again, I'll go to that, I'll use that one over and over. Ithaca, New York, alternative community school. No support staff. Most successful schools, no support staff. You know who does it? The kids. They clean the school. They cook the lunches. They clean up after themselves. They water the plants. They run off papers. They work in the office. And guess what? That school doesn't have to worry about vandalism because those kids are responsible for their own school and the upkeep of it, and they take care of it. And you know what else happens in those schools? You won't see kids walking around with purple hair and you know, lip rings and nose rings and everything else, and they have low dropout rate, almost nothing. They have low violence, and they have virtually no teen pregnancies. Why? Because they have an identity. They all know each other, the teachers know them, and they all respect each other. You know, we're the only, it floors me in the United States. We become obsessed with our tools, you know? We have textbooks. We become obsessed with textbooks. We get computers. We become obsessed with computers. We get tests. We become obsessed. What carpenter do you know with his hammer glued to his hand and he walks around glued to his hand? I mean, that's what we do in this country. We become obsessed with everything that comes down the pike that's new. Instead of using it as a tool, it becomes our obsession. In successful schools, all of that is in another room somewhere else that you can use as a resource. But it's not in the classroom. Education is conceived of as a privilege rather than a right. Every successful school in the United States has a lottery to get in. And the lottery is conceived of children from every single background. It's commensurate with the community. In other words, if there's a lot of children who are low income, then the majority of the lottery comes from the low income population. At risk, they're all in the school together, and they all support each other, and there's not one label that says who is who. I took a group up to Ithaca, and the principal teaches in every one of these schools, by the way, and the principal was teaching a class on brain research, believe it or not, to, quote, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And in that class was a brain-damaged child, and I said to the people who were with me, okay, I want your assignment for this class is to find out which child is brain damaged, and when we left, they said, and I said, that is the significant factor between a good school and a good teacher, because all those children were created equal. All those children were seen as equal. They teach kids survivor skills. Hey, you know, when kids get out of high school today, who can balance a checkbook? Who knows how to go shopping for groceries, by darn it? Or buy a car, or buy insurance. What's insurance? How do you buy a home? How do you do all these critical, essential survival skills? We are not teaching kids this because we keep them in the classroom too long when they should be out there doing community service. Every successful school in the United States does at least 30 hours of community service, teachers and students, and most of them do 100 per year. Those kids are out in the community. Not only are they working in the community, but they're mentoring and shadowing. They've got senior citizens who are helping them because, hey, our senior citizen population is growing, who are helping them with the job that they want to do. Some of them try 6 and 7 careers at the same time. Well, that sure as all would help me, a person who's trying to hire people. If I spend $1 billion trying to train people, and you know what happens between the ages of 18 and 28, how many times youth change jobs between 18 and 28? Do you know how many times? 10. 10 careers. That's insanity. They should be doing that when they're in high school, when they've got all the energy to do it. And are we keeping up with the brain research? Do you know what the brain research says about teenagers? They should be sleeping till 10 o'clock in the morning. That's why they're half asleep in the classroom. But do we make our classrooms commensurate with the brain research? Oh, why would we want to do that? We see children as whole human beings instead of bits and pieces. Take a watch apart. If I take a watch apart and I spread it out on the table, I've got little gears, I've got plastic, I've got numbers, I've got all kinds of things. Does that tell me what that's going to look like? Of course not. When I put it together, it makes 1 + 1 is 3. It makes something much more than itself, something intangible. It tells time. Would I know that by looking at the pieces? Well, children cannot learn by learning bits and pieces. They can't put the things together again. It does not, the world does not make sense to them. It's not real world. All right, yes?
Do these successful schools start at 10 o'clock?
Some of them. What they do is alternate the time. The school is open from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, and on weekends. And it's a community school, so the kids walk. These are smart people. Latest brain research. We know about hemisphericity, right and left hemisphere of the brain. Everybody knows that. We have a right hemisphere, a left hemisphere. We've known that for how many years? Do we teach to the right side of the brain? No. Do we teach children about their emotions? No. When a child comes into the classroom, 50% of them are divorced. What are they thinking about? Well, the court says that I have to be at Daddy's house on Thursday, Friday I'm at Mommy's house Saturday. Where are my socks? How is a child like that supposed to learn? In the major cities, it's even higher, 60% in major cities.